Ladies and gentlemen, this is the regular city council meeting of August 13th, 2024. It is 6:30 p.m. I'll ask that you stand with us. We do the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilperson Rangel.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can have a seat. First thing on the agenda we're going to do is recognize some young people that are back there. And I knew they were here because I was in my office and I heard them come in. So, Coach, if you and your folks will come up here, we're going to talk about our softball team. Thank you. They did extremely well for themselves in competitions lately, and their coach. The most embarrassing thing that a mayor or an MC or whatever can do is stand up in front of people and read off names, and you get to a name, so I'm going to say this name wrong, and the only person more embarrassed than the young person is the guy that reads the name wrong. So I'm going to give this to the coach. And all right. Go right ahead.
Okay. All right, we have Hayden Sawicki, Hayden Wayford, Hayden's right here, Gabby Brown, Rylan Mash, Mahana Gruber, Brinley Cantu, Sloan Craig, Kennedy Mash, Sophia Daft, Madeline Aguilar, Lily Colley, Mamie Alston, and not here is Charlie Fielding.
All right. We are so grateful for y'all coming down here to spend your time. I read about you when you were playing ball, and I was so proud of you. And I am excited to give y'all this really nice little frameable object here that you can hang up in recognition of your accomplishments as athletes in our town. And we look forward to school starting pretty quick when you get around to softball season and y'all are old enough to play in the high school. We'll look forward to that. We hope our football team and our basketball team does as well as y'all have. Y'all are an inspiration to us. I want you to have this. I'm going to come by and shake all your hands, and everybody's going to be taking pictures in a minute, so you may have to squeeze in a little bit so we can get everybody in. Thank you so much.
They're going in different directions.
5, 4, 3.
City council meeting tonight.
Thank you. Appreciate you. Next thing we're going to do is establish presence of a quorum. We'll have a roll call. Ward 1. Here. Ward 2.
Here.
Ward 3.
Here.
Ward 4.
Here.
Mayor here. Next item, citizens to be heard. I have one card from Mr. Patrick Kane. Mr. Kane, if you'd like to come up.
Good evening, Patrick Kane, 1123 East Cedar Street. Asked to speak on agenda item A, which is the proposed FY25 budget. At y'all's last budget workshop, city manager said a 24% tax increase would be a tough pill to swallow. If you look at the agenda packet that was put out, the average taxable residence last year's bill was $1,101, and the proposed tax increase would add $285. That's worse than a 24% tax increase. That's a 25.9% tax increase. So is there something else in the budget, somewhere else you can squeeze so that we're not seeing such a large, tax increase on the residents of the city? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kane. Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. The following items may be acted upon in a single motion. No separate discussion or action on any of these items will be heard or held unless pulled by request of a member of the city council. Council, are there any of those you wish to move? If not, do I have a motion on the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further question? If not, we'll call for a vote. Ward 1?
Aye.
Ward 2?
Aye.
Ward 3?
Aye.
Ward 4?
Aye.
Mayor, aye. It's unanimous. Next item on the agenda. Receive presentation from Dan Jackson with Willdan regarding the utility rate study and utility fees supporting the 2024-2025 budget. And Mr. Sorrell.
Thank you. Good evening. I was going to introduce Dan Jackson and Dennis as well, did the utility fee study. Dan did the utility rate study. Dan received his MBA in finance from the University of Chicago in 1984. He has 35 years of experience as an international financial expert in the utility industry. He's completed more than 400 water, wastewater, electric, gas, solid waste, stormwater cost of service studies, and long-term financial plans for clients. He's also been an expert witness in state court, federal court, and before several public utility commissions, and has given dozens of lectures and presentations before professional associations. He's generally recognized as a national expert in water utility rate making and financial planning. Introduce Dan Jackson.
Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I very much appreciate the chance to talk with you tonight and present the results of our water and wastewater rate study and our user fee study. I have a summary report here and PowerPoint presentation I'd like to go through. I won't spend a lot of time on a lot of the details. It's a very technical report. I'd rather keep this relatively high level to talk about some of the major issues with regards to water and wastewater rates. I'm first going to spend a little time talking about the water and wastewater rate study, and then I'll turn it over to my colleague Dennis Coral, who will speak real briefly on the user fee study as well. All right, there we go. I do very much appreciate the chance to come before you tonight, and we are very honored by the chance to work with the city of Rockport. As Robbie said, I've done this study for over 100 cities, separate cities here in the state of Texas, cities all across the United States, and in 9 foreign countries as well. And many of the issues
that you're facing here in the city of Rockport with regards to your long-term water and wastewater rates are very similar to what cities all across the United States are facing. Water costs are simply going up. They're going up for everybody. They're going up in every region of the country. The average utility in the United States has been raising its rates 5 to 6% every year, and that trend is expected to continue and might even accelerate. As a matter of fact, the American Water Works Association forecasts that water and sewer rates across the country are going to triple in the next 15 years. Now, why is that? Well, there's an intuitively obvious reason for that, and that is that we have 6 billion people on the planet today. We had 1 billion people 100 years ago, but we've got the exact same amount of fresh water. So as the population grows, the demand increases as well. Environmental regulations increase costs also. Many of the cost increases in the provision of water and wastewater service are beyond the control of a utility. For example, you try to run your water operation like a business. You want the revenues from your rates to cover all the costs of providing that service. Well, guess what? Like any business, your costs go up. Cost of everything goes up 3 to 4% a year just due to inflation. So it's natural to expect that water costs are going to trend upwards. Furthermore, many utilities, such as the City of Rockport, have to continually invest in their system. They have to put tens of millions of dollars of capital improvements into their system to ensure that it continues to operate and function at a level that is acceptable to all of your citizens. Like any asset, they wear out over time. And so the combination of all these factors do push costs up. But also keep this in mind. I'm going to show you some rate comparisons, what you pay here in Rockport as compared to what people pay in other parts of, not only this part of Texas, but all throughout the state of Texas. But keep this in mind, 30 to 40% of utilities charge rates that do not cover their costs. So just because a utility's rate is lower than yours, it doesn't necessarily mean that they're running a more efficient operation. It might mean that they're using their general fund to subsidize their water and sewer fund. That's not happening here in Rockport. Your water and sewer rates are self-financing. Okay, we've talked about the industry in general. Let's just talk briefly about the City of Rockport in specifically. You're experiencing some fairly significant growth right now. That is properly managed growth can be very beneficial to a utility. Inflation, of course, is driving up your operating costs. You buy the lion's share of your water from the San Patricio Municipal Water District, and those costs are going to go up. They're already saying that they're going to be increasing their costs, and when they do that, you have to pass those costs through to your ratepayers. But very importantly, the city has identified $67.9 million of capital improvements that need to be funded over the next 5 years to repair, replace, maintain, and expand your water and sewer system. Now, the good news is that's a direct investment in the community at large. But the bad news is that's something that has to be paid for, and that is going to have to be paid for by the rates. So the combination of inflation, increasing San Patricio costs, and increasing capital improvement costs are going to push up your rates and are going to result in the need for a new water and wastewater rate plan. Now, I'm sorry these numbers are kind of slow, well, kind of small, I mean, but this is just a chart that shows what your current rate structure is. You charge for water service two ways. You charge a minimum charge, and then you charge a volumetric rate for every 1,000 gallons of water that you sell. Your volumetric rate is known as an inverted block. The more you use, the more you pay. That is intended to encourage conservation by providing a financial disincentive for using greater amounts of water. You've got a separate rate structure for your residential and commercial customers. You also have, for your wastewater customers, a monthly charge and a volumetric rate. Your residential wastewater usage is capped at 15,000 gallons. Your non-residential is not. Your outside city customers pay premiums of somewhere between 10% and 30% based on the specific rate. And I'll get more into the outside city rate a little bit later in the presentation. But I want to concentrate first of all and talk about what people actually pay for service here and how it compares to other utilities. This chart right here shows what a customer of the City of Rockport pays for 5,000 gallons of water and sewer service a month. The average customer uses somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 gallons of water and wastewater service a month. That's an average. Some people use more, some people use less. That's why they call it an average. But I have to approach this a little because my eyesight is not what it used to be. The average customer here in Rockport pays $86.22 for 5,000 gallons of water and sewer service. How does that compare to some of your neighbors? Well, you're right about where you would expect to be. You're higher than some, you're lower than others. What's important about this chart is that it shows that the state average for the same amount of water is $96. So you're actually about $10 or about 12 to 14% below the state average. So like I said, you're about where you would expect to be, higher than some, lower than others, but your rates are certainly not disproportionate compared to what people pay for water service, at least in this region of the state of Texas. Okay, I'm going to briefly go through a couple of background charts on your system itself to set the stage for the rate plan. Right now, you've got about 10,000 water customers, and you have about 5,821 wastewater customers. About 43% of your water customers are outside the city limits. That is what I would call unusual but not unprecedented. That's a higher proportion than what you typically see for a lot of cities, but I've seen many cities that have greater proportions of outside city customers. Our rate plan projects that you will be adding 300 to 400 new water accounts each year for the next decade. Now keep in mind, a forecast is not a guarantee. A forecast is a prediction based on a series of reasonable assumptions. As water accounts grow, we're anticipating that water usage is going to grow as well. This chart right here is shows historical and forecast water consumption for the Rockport utility system. The chart shows right now that in the current year, 2024, you're expected to sell just about 1 billion gallons of water. And that amount, of course, is going to increase by about 30% over the next 10 years as you continue to add new accounts. Okay, now let's talk about the financial portion of the rate plan. What we did is we did a 10-year forecast of your revenues, your expenses, and your cost of service. We then identified the cost of service for each of your identified customer classes. The rate plan is based on a forecast of future costs. As I said earlier, it's not a guarantee, it's a prediction based on reasonable assumptions. Well, what are some of the assumptions that we used in coming up with this forecast? First of all, we assume that most of your operating costs are going to continue to go up, 3 to 4% a year. I think that's prudent financial planning. Costs are going up, they're going to continue to go up. Our model has the ability to forecast every single expense line item in the city's utility budget for the next 10 years. Now, some expenses are going to go up at higher rates than others, and our model takes that into consideration as well. The San Patricio rate is expected to increase by about 5% a year. And as I said earlier, this assumes that the city is going to be funding approximately $67.9 million of capital improvements, which is a direct investment in the future of your utility. That, to no great surprise, you don't have $67.9 million in the bank, so you got to borrow the money. And so the rate plan assumes that you issue debt over the next 5 years, and the rates are set at a point where that debt can be repaid. This chart right here shows the assumptions for the future debt. Capital improvement plans impact rates in 3 ways. How much do you have to pay? When do you have to spend it? And how do you finance it? This chart shows that you're going to have to issue about $47 million in wastewater debt and $20 million in water debt. And most of it is going to happen in the next 2 to 3 years. And so, as I said, the rate plan takes that into consideration. This chart right here shows your forecast cost of service over the next 10 years. Right now, it's costing you about $13.6 million to run your water system. That cost is expected to basically double over the next 10 years to about $26 million. The bar chart is broken down into operating expenses, capital outlays, and debt service. The top portion of each bar is the debt service. As you can see, it becomes a greater and greater portion of your total cost of service over the next decade. Okay, so let's first talk about the proposed rate plan for the inside city customers. We recommend that the city consider implementing a 5-year water and wastewater rate plan with rates to be adopted and implemented on October 1st of each year, 2024 through 2028. It would be one ordinance with 5 automatic rate adjustments in it for each of the next 5 years. There would not be any change to the fundamental rate structure, but it is going to require higher adjustments for wastewater and lower adjustments for water, just simply because wastewater's capital improvement needs are so much greater than water's needs right now. I'm first going to show you the proposed rate plan, then I'll show you the chart that everybody cares about, and that is what the impact would be on an average customer of this proposed rate plan. This chart right here shows what the rate plan would be for the next 5 years. You can see that the minimum charge and the volumetric rate goes up. For those who have a pocket calculator, it's about a 3% increase each year for the base charge and the volumetric rate for each of the next 5 years. On the wastewater side, the rate adjustment would be a little bit higher. Again, because you're forecast to issue twice as much wastewater debt as you are water debt. And you have fewer wastewater accounts. So you're issuing more debt over a fewer number of accounts, so that means the adjustments on the wastewater side have to be a little bit higher. Now, I know this is a jumble of numbers. The question everybody asks is, what is the impact going to be on an average customer? Again, like I said earlier in this presentation, the average water customer uses about 5,000 gallons of water and sewer service a month. That customer pays $86.22 a month for that service. Under this plan, that customer's bill would go up by about $5.58 a month. That's about a 6.5% increase in the first year. In the second, each of the next 4 years, it would be about the same, about $5.50 a month each year for the next 5 years. So the adjustments would be somewhere between 5 and 6% each year. Now, of course, if you use greater amounts of water, like if you use 10,000 gallons of water a month, then you pay $144, and your bill would go up by about $9 a month. Now, since the average usage is about 5,000 gallons a month, what that essentially means is about 70 to 75% of monthly bills are going to be 5,000 gallons or less. Think about it. Every customer has 12 bills a year. They've got a bill for every month. So most of those months, the water usage isn't going to be very much. In the summer months, it's probably going to be a little bit higher. And so most bills are going to be 5,000 gallons or less. And so I hate to take these very complex financial plans and try to summarize it in terms of 1 or 2 numbers. I don't like to do that, but if I did, I would say that for the majority of ratepayers, the average increase for inside city customers under this plan would be about $5 a month. Okay, let's move on to outside city rates. This is an interesting topic because it has been a topic that has been addressed by cities all across the state of Texas and all across the United States. It is common and accepted rate-making practice in the United States to charge higher rates for outside city customers than for inside city customers. Literally thousands of cities across the United States charge a higher rate for outside city customers than they do for inside city customers. As a matter of fact, the average premium for an outside city customer is 47% over the inside city customer rate. That's based on a national survey that was done by another consulting group. Now, because many, many cities have a certain element of their population that's outside the city, the AWWA long ago recognized that they had to develop a process for how you calculate the cost of serving these outside city customers. They developed a methodology, a process, which is known as the utility/hybrid basis. Again, this is not a rate-making seminar. I don't want to go into a lot of detail behind this. I just want to kind of summarize that this is a topic that a lot of people, a lot smarter than me, have been addressing for the last 50 years. They've put together a manual called the M1 manual. That's basically the holy Bible of rate-making. And in that manual, it outlines what the risks are, what the elements are of providing service to outside city customers, and how you calculate an outside city rate. This is something that's been endorsed by the Texas Public Utility Commission, and the methodology that was developed by the AWWA is the exact methodology that we applied in this analysis. I have done utility basis rate making for outside city customers for dozens of clients over the last 20 to 30 years. So I guess the question is, why are outside city rates typically higher than inside? Why, there's a lot of reasons for that. There's reasons such as business risk, financial risk, location. But the AWWA also talks about another factor, which is really one of the key factors. The key factor is known as the nature of the relationship. Inside city customers and outside city customers are fundamentally different customer bases. The reason is very simple. If you're an inside city customer, you are an owner of the system. You own the system, you're responsible for the system. Your full faith and credit goes into supporting the system, and if there are any problems with the system, if there's any unexpected expenses, if there's if revenues aren't sufficient to cover expenses, or there's some kind of crisis or some kind of major accident that destroys a water treatment plant or something like that, it is the inside city customers through their general fund and through their taxes who have to pay for those repairs. So what that means is you're an owner of the system, you're responsible for it. The outside city customers really can be considered to be renters. They pay the rates, but they don't pay anything more, and they don't have any responsibility for the system itself. So for that reason, they're fundamentally different. Think about it this way. Who would you rather be? Would you rather be a customer who, of a water system, pays a certain rate for that system, and you have total responsibility for that system? Anything that goes wrong, you have to pay for it, you're responsible for it, your full faith and credit goes into that. Or would you rather be a customer who pays the exact same rate, who has none of that? So obviously, if you ask 100 people would say, I'd rather be the second person. So for that reason, the two customers are not the same. And so, inside city customers assume a risk in servicing the outside city customers, and they are entitled to be compensated for that risk. And how do you calculate that compensation? You calculate it through applying the utility hybrid basis, and that's exactly what we did in this calculation. So, as I said, this is something that's very common. This is a chart here that shows some of the outside city premiums for some of your neighboring cities. As you can see, some cities have very nominal premiums, some cities have very high premiums. Many large cities have, there are a few large cities that don't have any premiums at all, mainly because they essentially don't have any outside city customers. And there are other cities that have very, very significant, like 40 and 50% outside city premiums. So there's a lot of variation between what the premium is for outside cities. But what is common, though, is that it is very common for outside city customers to pay a premium on the rate. So we applied the utility basis. We did, it's part of our comprehensive internationally recognized rate-making model. And our model projects that the cost of service for outside city customers is somewhere between 22 and 25% greater for water customers, and somewhere around 30 to 40% greater for wastewater customers. For that reason, we recommend that the city set a premium of 20% for outside city customers. It's a little less than your cost, but every year, these numbers are going to vary a little bit every year. I mean, depending on the decisions you ultimately make about what your capital improvements are going to be, whether there's some unexpected expenses, whatever. So we suggest you set it a little bit below your cost just to ensure that there isn't a situation where you would ever be charging your outside city customers a greater amount than what your cost is to serve. So in order to set the record, now, as I said at the beginning of the presentation, your minimum charges and your volumetric rates, they vary significantly. I mean, you've got some that are 10%, some that are 15%, some that are 30%. We recommend that you just let your rates evolve to the 20% margin. So what that means is that for the next 2 to 3 years, you would not do an adjustment in your outside city water rates. Then by October of 2027, your outside city water rates will reach 20% of the 20% greater than the inside city rates. They're a tad above that right now, but what you would do is you'd be increasing your inside city rates, you'd be keeping your outside city rates the same for the next 3 years, but by October of 2027, you would have a 20% premium on your outside city rates for your water customers. On your wastewater customers, we would recommend that you don't do an adjustment this year, but your 20% premium would kick in beginning in October of 2025. So there would be no increase at all in your outside city rates in October of 2024. There would be wastewater only adjustment in 2025 and 2026, and then there would be water rate adjustments in 2027 and 2028. This chart right here shows what the charges for outside city customers would be. Right now, an outside city customer who uses 5,000 gallons of water and sewer service a month pays $112.11. Their rate or their bill would not increase at all in 2024. 2025, it would go up by about $7 a month. 2026, it would go up by about $4.50 a month, and then about $5 to $6 a month in 2027 and 2028, which is when we reach parity at 120%. So that is our proposal for the outside city customers. So I'm going to now just turn it over real briefly to my colleague, Mr. Gorel, who's going to talk to you briefly about the utility user fee study. Dennis, here you go.
Hello, Mayor and Council. My name is Dennis Gorel, and we're going to switch topics a little bit here and talk about the utility user fee study. And it's calculated completely different than the rate study, but it's a short kind of portion of it. So what are user fees? User fees are fees for programs or services that provide a private benefit for the individual requesting them with very limited to no benefit to the community as a whole. A very important word in that is private benefit. And generally, a person who is receiving a private benefit should technically pay for the cost that the city incurs in providing that benefit. The state law requires the fees to reasonably relate to the service that is being provided. So what is a user fee study? The main objective of a user fee study is to calculate the full cost of providing services. We provide each fee, and each service is calculated individually, and up to 100% may be recovered by the city. The way we calculate the cost, the full cost of these services, is what we call using fully burned hourly rates. Fully burned hourly rates take the salary and benefits for the position. They add on top of that a department overhead, or what it takes the department to operate. And lastly, it also adds an indirect overhead, or the central service overhead. That is the support that that department receives from the departments such as human resources, finance, city manager. So we make sure we include all that, and that's how we get to fully burned hourly rates. Once we get the fully burned hourly rates for the positions, we then ask and sit with staff and ask for the direct time it takes them to complete each individual service. And that's how we come up with the full cost calculation of each service and fee. Numbers are a little small, so I'm going to read it here from my PowerPoint. But here we have 4 columns. We have a column that has the full cost for each fee. We have the new column for suggested fee, what we are recommending to change the fee to, the number, dollar amount, how much the fee is going to change, and the cost recovery level for each service. So for meter connections, we're recommending to increase that from $25 to $60. Meter reconnects, we're recommending to increase that to $60 as well. Meter reconnects after hours, we recommend to increase that to $85 since it's after hours. Meter disconnects, we recommend that to increase that to $60. For the residential deposit, we're recommending to increase to $170. For the commercial deposits, we're recommending to increase that to $780. And for the deposits, it's just to cover basically 2 average bills for that customer class. For the NSF fees, we're recommending to increase it at $30, and the reason we're capping it at $30 is because that is capped by the state itself. For the meter tempering fees, we recommend to increase that to $100. For regular trip charge, we recommend to increase that to $50, a little bit less than the meter connections, even though it's similar cost. For the theft of service, that has to be calculated individually depending on what was stolen, so that's going to be a cost. For the damage, that's going to be a cost as well. And for the meter lock fee, currently you're not even recovering the cost of the lock itself, so we recommend to increase that to $60 as well. And that is the portion of the user fees, and I'm going to pass it back to Dan Jackson for just finishing thoughts and finalize this.
Well, you all will be happy to know we're to our final chart in the presentation. I just want to make a couple of real brief closing remarks. As Mr. Sorrell indicated, I've been doing this for 40 years. I've done hundreds of presentations, and I've never had anybody come up to me after a presentation and say, hey, thank you very much for recommending raising rates. I really appreciate that. But what I have had is people say, I don't like it, but I understand why it needs to be done. We want to have a healthy utility. We want to be able to take care of ourselves and future generations of residents, and that requires investment in the future. So, for that reason, we strongly recommend that you consider adopting this rate plan. Why? First of all, because it will ensure that it will give you sufficient revenue to fund your operations. Right now, your utility is self-sufficient. You do not depend on the general fund. This rate plan will ensure that you continue to work independently of the general fund without subsidies. It will allow you to invest $68 million in assets that will not only serve you, it will serve your children, your grandchildren, and maybe even your great-grandchildren as well. The rate adjustments that we're proposing here are very much in line with what you're seeing around the state. 5 to 6% a year is the state average. And you're right at, your rates will remain below the state average. The percentage increases will be about the same as the state average, and you're getting $68 million of investment for your money. And finally, the rate design is based on national and international rate-making standards to ensure that the cost is reasonable, fair, and appropriate for all of your customer classes. We strongly recommend that you consider this plan. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Council?
Yes, sir.
The gentleman's chart that he had up there a moment ago with some of the recommendations for the fees there, the user fees that are kind of a one-time type of thing. How long has it been, maybe somebody can tell me some history, since we've raised those in the past? It's been some time, that's my understanding. We didn't just do this last year and bump them all up. It's been
We haven't done them in the 2 years I've been here, so.
So-
Several years.
So it's been some,
10 years since these fees were looked at.
I would
Mike,
say early 2000s.
10 years, over 10 years.
Over 10 years.
Mike, you said 10 years roughly?
At least 10
Okay.
years since those fees were looked at.
Well, I think that's important. Again, nobody wants rates or fees or anything to go up if we can help it, but if we've held them for 10 years, it doesn't seem unreasonable to look at something like this here. I just thought that'd be good information.
Sir.
Other questions?
I do appreciate the 5-year plan. For budgetary reasons, it gives you a projection of what for staff can look at for budgetary reasons and also kind of know what your debt service could be based on those projections. So I do appreciate that. I think that's something to consider. I like that better than having to come back every year and argue the point or prove the point or whatever you may say, but I do like that part about it.
Anyone else?
I guess I just make a comment. Something that we all should really focus on is with inflation, is that 3%, I think you said, every year? That's already a cost that we have to put into raising these rates, if, that we don't like to do, but if we have to raise our rates, it's because they're raising their rates. On top of that, the major thing that I look at is the CIP projects. We have so many outdated equipment that keep breaking, and we have to go out into our general fund and try to find it, our utility fund, and that is part of what is killing our our budget. So having those things fixed and stop kicking the can down the road is going to really help try to get those things in line, so we're not continuing to do so, I would think. So that's really a big important factor into why we need to make sure we have money into our utility fund.
I would also like to point out that thank you for bringing a professional study to us. What we asked for at the end of last year, something to help us establish our rates and really have something to lean on instead of just picking out of air. So I think this really does help us quite a lot.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your presentation too. I sat down and was going to write out a couple of questions and you answered them before I got there, so I appreciate that. But thank you so very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is hold a public hearing on solid wastewater rates, voluntary fire fund, utility fees for all customers. Mr. Sorrell.
We're just entertaining public comment.
Public hearing.
Okay. Yes, sir, Mr. Kane.
Evening, Patrick Kane, 1123 East Cedar Street. First, I'd like to thank the city for hiring Will Down to do the rate study. It was good to get a new set of eyes on it. And I also believe their analysis, so thank them for doing it, validates the citizen petition. Right, we were paying 38% more for out-of-city residents. Y'all were proposing to jack it up to 50%. And what you saw today was a 20% recommendation. So I think the citizen action to do the petition was fair and reasonable to pursue. I do have some concerns since we've not seen the detailed rate study. First is there's a franchise fee the city charges, and based on an old budget, that franchise fee was explained as the use of the city right-of-ways. Well, the majority of the right-of-ways is to deliver within the city, not to deliver to people outside the city. You're talking almost $900,000 in franchise fees. And that works out to, for your 10,000 people, $7.16 a month. That is not insignificant, right? And that's basically I'll say a gift to the city because there's no cost associated with that. You're also changing your methodology on your admin support. You know, when we were complaining about the rate study, all it was, well, you know, we spent a lot of city labor supporting the utilities, and we do cost transfers to recover that. And what's happening is y'all are proposing to change that to be a percentage of revenue, no longer based on the cost support. So you can tweak that number. You're already generating 6% profit, basically, based on the franchise fee. I don't know what the number is because I haven't seen it, but let's say you added 4%, now you're up to 10%, right? And maybe next year you want to change that number to 5%. So the utility should pay for the support it gets. It shouldn't be a profit generator for admin support. The last is the 67.9 million of CIP. And I know the environment we live in, it's rough on any type of equipment. And there might be a lot of work that's needed, but you're being asked soon to approve a rate that has $69 million of CIP in it, and you've never talked about 69 million of CIP, right? But it's already being baked into the rate. Is 69 reasonable over the next 5 years? Maybe it's something less over the next 10 years. I don't know what that number is. And I believe that's all I wanted to talk about. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Anyone else? Thank you. Okay, item number 6, consider approval for first of 2 readings of ordinance 1941, amending the City of Rockport Code of Ordinances, Chapter 82, Solid Waste, Article 2, Refuse Collection, Section 82.39, Fee Schedule, repealing all prior ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for publication of an effective date. Mr. Sorrell.
Thank you. Good evening again. We received a letter from Republic Services. Part of their contract is that they're able to pass through any consumer price index increases. And we received a letter from them, I believe that's attached herein, showing that there's a 4% across the board increase in rates due to inflation. The city also has a 6% franchise fee that they do collect for handling on top of their rates, and so we've included that. There's a $1.48 administrative fee on residential cards. Once you get more on the commercial side, it's just a flat 6%, but that's included in these rates. And so what we're asking is for council to approve. The net increase to residential customers is expected to be $1.10 per month. Excuse me. So we're asking council to approve increasing the rates. Again, it's more of a pass-through from Republic Services, and these are already included in that proposed budget, because we really don't have a choice. We have to either absorb it or it's not really optional for us. Any questions, please?
Another couple comments to go to Mr. Kane. Thank you for speaking up at the public hearing. So I just want to elaborate on the franchise fees that he spoke on. I know you just kind of mentioned it, so they were included on the study. You said the franchise fees.
Oh, okay. Oh,
yes.
This is just for solid waste.
It's just solid
for
waste.
trash.
I can't talk about that. Okay.
But we'll have those ordinances on the next agenda.
I'm sorry. I was confused on that. I'm sorry.
I mean, if you want, we can grab.
No, it's okay.
Dan
I can wait. I can go next.
Okay.
I was just confused. Sorry. It's my fault.
Are they going to be here next meeting to answer
No.
questions? So can we retract back
Yep. And we'll.
into the end of the public hearing
So
so that we can ask questions?
I just misread.
you have new questions from the public hearing?
Well,
Yes.
we'd like to address.
Send them
comments
in
from the
and
public hearing.
we'll get an answer from those guys, yeah. We'll have that before.
Since we're already on this agenda item, do we need to
We'll just
take
finish
action on
this.
this one and then get them? We need to do something with.
No. This is only on solid waste,
Yeah,
we're not
this-
bringing
I
them
know,
back.
do we need to take action on solid waste before we start bringing that back up?
Yeah. We'll get your questions answered before the next meeting, for sure.
On the Republic Waste, I just wanted to say that this was included in, I believe, in our contract. We didn't realize savings on the last contract, we didn't have the CPI built in on the last one, the
Yeah,
last year's?
I don't think there was one last year, if I remember. No, there was on commercial, I believe.
Commercial,
Only
only
commercial,
residential
yes, sir.
not. And we accepted that knowing that in the following years, we would probably have to play catch up, and we're still, 4% is still not the 9% CPI, so.
Absolutely.
And like everything else in the world, everything's just getting a little more expensive, so. With that said, I move to approve, item 6 as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, question? Not, we'll call for a vote. Ward 1?
Aye.
Ward 2?
Aye.
Ward 3?
Aye.
Ward 4?
Aye.
Mayor, aye, it's unanimous.
If you would like to go back to number 4, these guys are back and you can ask your questions.
So I just wanted to know a little bit, elaborate on the franchise fees, that Mr. King had talked about, are those included in your rate study?
Yes, they are. Franchise fees, payment in lieu of taxes are recognized by the AWWA as a fair, just, and reasonable cost of providing water and sewer service. And so, yes, they are included in the cost of service, and that is a responsibility that all ratepayers have. Because a payment in lieu of taxes, part of the purpose of that, it's not a profit to the utility. It is used to reimburse the general fund for the services that the general fund provides to the utility. For example, you, city council, city manager, all of you support the water and sewer system. And so, but you're not paid for out of the water and sewer fund. And so for that reason, cities typically have this kind of indirect charge in order to reimburse the general fund for the support that it provides. It is a fair, just, and reasonable cost. Cities everywhere, I mean, all over this. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen a city that doesn't do it. So it's done everywhere.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that was on record. And then also with the CPI projects, I also just want to say that we have gone over those for the last, at least since I've been in council every year, and we have not been able to do maybe a few. So I know every year those. Yes, and I know every year it builds up more and more because we have to keep kicking the can down the road. So I just want to put those things on record while we're in the meeting. Thank you.
No, I just wanted to ensure that Councilwoman Patman's questions were answered.
Sure.
And I believe as a percentage, I think I was looking at Austin's, that I think Austin's utility transfer is like north of even 11%.
That sounds like Austin.
Yeah, they're one of the higher ones, but.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Next item, number 7, consider providing direction on voluntary fees to set for the utility bill surcharge fund, which is the fire fund, for fiscal year 2024, 2025.
Council, last year, we did this after we had approved the budget. Council had asked for us to look at the fire fund before the budget was approved. So that's what we're doing, is we're bringing this up, is to try to get council direction in terms of where we want to go on this. I believe, if I remember correctly, there was discussion that we wanted to go probably higher than the $2 that we're at right now. We were at $1.35. I think it had been there for a couple of years. We put it at $2 to review it again this year. So we're seeking guidance from council on this in terms of what would you like to see, if anything.
Everything's getting more expensive again. Just keep saying that same thing, and I do believe for the $2 or $24 a month, or $24 a year that we're paying for the volunteer fire departments, we're getting a heck of a deal. And I don't know if that's even coming close to covering some of the costs that they may have. I did ask some of them to show up today to just kind of see how the increase from last year to this year, or 23, whatever it was, if it actually did help them at all, and if there was a need for another increase. So I kind of got them at 5 o'clock today, so I didn't really give them much time to prepare. But if that's okay with the mayor, I'd ask the chiefs to maybe answer a few questions for us.
I think that's justifiable. We have discussed this at times in past, and if we ever had to come up with a paid fire department, it would cost you almost the equivalent of what the police department makes, which is a little bit more than $24 a person per year. We need to do something because these guys are having to pay a lot of money out of pocket for their own equipment, for their own uniforms, for everything they've got. We have an Oyster Fest that helps pay for fire trucks, and we have all sorts of things that go on. But there needs to be something that we do that makes it more bearable for the cost that these guys have to pay, guys and women have to pay in the volunteer fire departments. So, gentlemen, whichever of you would like to come first, come up and tell us about your expenses and what you think would be a help to you.
Sorry to put you on the spot, guys.
My name's Cody. I'm the Fulton Fire Chief here in Fulton. We also respond all together with Rockport and Lamar. We all three work together because that's what it takes. But I do have you're asking about cost. We said prices go up every year. We are a volunteer department. I know Fulton, not one of us gets paid, so it's all strictly volunteer service. So any money that does come in, especially from the community, the voluntary fund for the water fund that comes to us, it strictly goes to operating costs, equipment, things of that nature. Just kind of give you an idea, I bought 2 air packs last week with 2 bottles, and it cost me $17,000. I'm fixing to buy 2 sets of gear and 2 wildland extrication sets of gear together, and that's a cost of, I've got it right here, $9,734. That's just to outfit 2 firefighters with gear. So costs are rising. Equipment cost, these trucks are just kind of like everybody's vehicles. The electronics, the computer systems, the guys that were mechanics all their lives can't work on them anymore because they don't have the computer systems to be able to work on them in-house anymore. So we thank you for what you do. Thank the community for doing the voluntary fund, and because it does help us out a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Good evening. Roy Laird, Assistant Chief, Rockport Volunteer Fire Department. The funds do help us out a lot. These funds are mostly used for us to purchase fire trucks, and we're looking to replace one of our older engines, which is over 25 years old right now. By the time it gets replaced, it will be pretty close to 30. So you're looking 3 to 4 years out by the time you order a truck and you actually get it delivered. And this truck right now is going to cost us $1.2 million. So, and to get 10 years ago, we purchased a truck with $624,000. So you're looking at an increase, 400 some odd thousand within the last 10 years. So this fund really helps us out a lot with that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Tim Dorn. I'm the Assistant Chief of the Lamar Volunteer Fire Department. As you can see, Lamar receives a little bit different funding, but our costs are pretty much the same. One of the big things that you've heard over and over again is the cost of everything is going up. You take a look just at our fuel costs. You take a look at our bunker gear that we have to wear. Our costs of our bunker gear have nearly doubled in the last couple of years, and that's the gear necessary for our firefighters to wear going into a structural firefighting environment. One thing that's very important is, as we look at our volunteer fire departments, while there are 3 different departments that may serve 3 different areas, we all support each other. Anytime there's a structure fire anywhere in Aransas County, all 3 fire departments are automatically paged out on an automatic aid basis to respond to that fire. There are oftentimes we may be responding into town, be halfway there. Fortunately, it's not as big an incident that requires as many people. We turn around and go back. But the same thing holds true with Fulton and Rockport coming into Lamar when we have an incident up north. So all 3 departments serve all of the citizens of Aransas County and the citizens of Rockport. With that, we appreciate any help that you give us. thanks for what you do for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Questions?
I have a question. After we increased it by 50 cents last year, did we see a decrease in that number of people that choose to volunteer that $2?
I didn't measure that. I didn't. We did bring in significant amount of more money for that volunteer. So I would say it would be minimal.
Minimal that dropped off.
Minimal that dropped off, excuse me.
Participating
Yes.
in the,
Yes.
voluntary fund.
We went from $1.35 to $2 even.
Well, I would propose another dollar increase, and I know that it is what it is, but our other options to support our fire departments are looking at ESDs or some other funding mechanism to be able to buy their fire trucks, to buy their, passing the hat at churches isn't cutting it the form anymore. When you gotta buy a truck that's $100 or it's $1 million to buy a truck, that's real dollars. And I'm thankful we're not paying for it in taxes. We can volunteer to pay it on our utility bill, to help them out. With that being said, I would be okay with another dollar hike in it this year.
Yeah, I would support that as well. I mean, beyond just the residential needs of your services, I mean, we've had a huge increase in brush fires, and all of that's a lot of resources. There's a lot of things that go into this that I think that an additional dollar would be supported. My only concern was by increasing that, will we see a decrease in the number of volunteers, because that can negatively affect the overall revenue. So that's my concern. I don't want to increase significantly if we're gonna see a decrease in that number of volunteers, and then there's no offset there, so.
Can we take a look back at it in 6 months? I mean, it's by ordinance, so we could, if we're seeing a fall off of funding, at the 6 months, so we roll it back to a different, yes ma'am, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Maybe we could do an option, like, we're at $2, so we say you can do $2.50, you can do $3.50, or you can do $4.50.
I was gonna ask, the way it's set up, it's standard too.
And so,
Can you go in, I know you do a one-time payment, right? But can you set it where we could even do like 2, 3?
So you could make the minimum a 50-cent raise, which, of course, then you're asking everybody to re-opt in.
Does that take people off the list, if they say, oh, I didn't even realize.
I didn't know I was paying for it. But our gig is not to get them to not know that they don't pay for it. So, you could do a 50-cent increase, and then I would do like $2.53, $3.50.
Would you just put that on their bill as an option?
I don't know, Robbie will figure that out.
Sorry, Robbie.
I think it's important to also put in additional information of what this cost supports. And that it not just supports Rockport, but Lamar and Fulton as well. I think it's really important, because before this came in front of me, I wasn't even aware of how substantial that was. It was part of my bill, and knowing now, it's something that I would be comfortable increasing it, you know what I mean, because of how important it is. So I think it's very important to share that information with others that may not know.
We'll do a did you know on it and kind of put out that we're intending to change it, and what all it goes for, some costs and things like that, and that you are not paying for it via taxes, which is your other option. So we'll put some information out on that.
Okay.
I like the idea of giving the opportunity for, again, 2, 3, $3.50. I think probably going to be surprised how many folks will check the top box, because they understand that if we put the did you know in there, that could help some others that maybe, but giving someone the option to give a little more than even what Brad was saying, I think we'll be surprised what we get.
Now, it's part of the bill. I think that's the deal. because it's part of the bill, because I knew there was a caveat with this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's included as part of the bill already, and so therefore it would be changing we'd have to have more billing adjustments.
So if I want $5 out of my bill, you go in and you put, the Vanessa wants $5.
I think, I remember visiting this last year, is that if people wanted to pay more, they were welcome to go they could go to the billing department and pay there. Because then you're getting into billing adjustments as you're going forward and constantly trying to tweak. You're trying to hit a moving target. That was why we didn't do the check a box, was because it messed up billing. That's right.
So previously it was a voluntary basis, and now I think you have it on every bill, is that correct?
It's included, yes, it's included unless they opt out, then it's not. But otherwise it is included, and so it's already baked into the bill. It would create a nightmare on that end.
If we did the option.
If we did an option. If you did an option, it would make it a nightmare, yes. Yeah, that would just come back. Jamie would hunt me down. Yes, you would.
Our less than user-friendly software would not,
Yes. Thank you.
probably assist with that.
Yes.
Well, then,
Darn it.
and I guess, I was gonna support that, the options, but I don't sound like that's gonna be conducive for what we're trying to do here, so.
You wanna do something in the middle, and then
We
we
look
can
at
kind of
this every
monitor?
year, is that right? We look at
We
this
can,
every
you
12
can look at it
months?
anytime you want.
Okay. You know, we went from $1.25, or $1.35? $1.35 to $2. But that $1.35 was not adjusted for
Several years.
for quite some time, if I remember correctly. I mean, probably think the same thing with our rate studies, over 10 years. So I don't feel like I'm making a huge grab by adding $1 to it, since we didn't add anything to it for quite some time. So I feel like I still support a $3 utility bill on that.
I'd feel comfortable with that, but is this something that you can, moving forward, monitor if there's any significant, like the number of people that may choose to opt out? Because if we're seeing a high number of people opting out because of $1 increase, we may need to revisit this and reduce it down to something that's more.
I'll ask Robbie to put those monthly revenues in my city manager's report that you get at the end of the.
That would be helpful.
And then just the information where they can make an additional, donation, and how to do that if it's not an option to increase it as a standard on the bill.
Okay.
I believe they still do a letter drive. Chief, do all three of y'all still do letter drive?
Correct.
Okay. So there's your option for a one-time drop a check.
Yeah, because the software, like you're saying, is less than helpful. I mean, I can ask Jamie to look at it, to just kind of monitor it and see if there's an increase in the number of people saying, no, I want to opt out, I want to opt out. But there's not like a report or anything out of the system. It's not
okay.
that sophisticated.
Just the number in which we're at now versus maybe in a 6-month period. If there's a reduction there, bring it to our attention.
Like a reduction in revenues, we could do something like that.
Revenue
Okay,
impact
we
in
could
a
do it that way.
6-month period.
The revenues.
Well, would we consider that without the increase, though?
Yeah, it's independent of.
Okay.
So Mayor, do you need a motion or just a?
That's direction.
That's the direction.
We'll come back to you with an ordinance adopting the fee.
Okay.
So we're $3?
Yeah, $3.
I think we're comfortable with.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. Next item, receive a presentation on the proposed fiscal year 2025 budget from Ms. Ronna.
Mayor and council, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I did not print you a budget book this year. I have no intention of doing so unless you request one. You have a little green thumb drive. It's on there, and it will be on the web as soon as we have to put the proposed as soon as this meeting's over. So this has been an interesting budget year. You guys have all worked really hard. Lots of work sessions and information can I get some help? Have gone into putting through this. I'm not gonna bore y'all with lots of details. I'm gonna hit the high points. Yep. Okay. Start right there. So this year for our proposed budget, we are anticipating, or we're asking you guys to approve 3.5% increase, which we're allowed by law on the M&O operations, plus the tax assessor collector came back and informed us that we have an unused increment, and we would like to grab that as well. I also put a handout on the dais regarding the unused increment, how that's calculated and where it comes from. I know we've had discussions in the past 2 years about using increments, and every year we think we use them up, but every year they come back and say, oh no, wait, you have one more. So in addition to that, then we're asking for an additional 2 cents on the INS. When we started our budget discussions, we told you guys that we needed 6 cents on the INS to fully fund everything that we needed to operate. We think 2 cents is a better number to get us moving in the right direction. That'll be a 12.5% increase in taxes, or a 4 cent per 100 valuation on each home. It will afford us a 16% increase in revenue. And of that, we'll end up with a 5% COLA, which we've discussed. We did not give a COLA last year. We gave a one-time payment. We are attributing some of that to a 90% turnover rate in staff. So we would like to do the 5% COLA to keep up with the rest of the world. I have up there potential police officer. What we discussed about this is all of our positions aren't full. There's potential for a grant to come through for this. If we receive a grant and if we're able to fill our positions, we would like to have the money in hand for that one new police officer. We have not had new police officers, a new in number, since Mayor J-Ro was the police chief, and I know that's been at least 5 years. So this would be our first new police officer in 5 years, again, with the caveat that we can fill all of our positions. If we do not fill all of our positions, or we do not receive that grant, we'll have the money held back. We can put it to the reserves, which our reserves are at 111 days. They need to be at 180, 160. 180. So it would not hurt us at all to put that $100 and a few $1,000s into the reserves. We're going to restart the V&E program, vehicle repair and replacement program, vehicle and equipment. We have not done that. I don't think since you got an influx of vehicles from Harvey, and I say you because I wasn't here then, so you guys got an influx of new vehicles, but there was no repair and replacement. This 16% increase in revenue allows us to catch up and then keep going. So there's a catch-up game in there. Pool repairs, Brittany brought me the lovely news that we have to have somewhere between $250,000 to $500,000 worth of pool repairs. I know that's a big squishy number. It's gonna be, there's a set amount that's about $250,000. When they start breaking it down and getting into it, we think there's gonna be a lot more. To that end, the pool has outlived its useful life for about 10 years. So if we put an influx of money in it, we think we'll end up with about a 30% savings in efficiency. So it hopefully will be worth our time. We've talked about having a city hall contingency. I've said it 100 times, I will say it again, we are not over budget. We are not over budget on city hall. We also are not finished with the project. So it's not gonna hurt, in my mind, for us to have a couple of $100,000 in hand for finishing up that project. We haven't really gone through our issues publicly because we aren't over budget, and we are working those out. But those, as the project comes to close, those things will come more into focus, and we'll have a better idea of what we need to present and what we need to ask for, if anything. I have to say that Kimberly Henry has done an amazing job. If you ever have a project you want to keep under budget, get her on it. She will make sure it happens. So, and then the other thing that Andrea just mentioned, we haven't done our capital improvement project. I know since I've been here, I don't know what you did before that, But we've got to start putting our capital, we've got to start investing in our capital. The guys over at Public Works have done an amazing job buying repairs and doing capital improvements where they can out of their maintenance and operations budget. That's not the appropriate place to do those things, though. We're spending short-term dollars on long-term assets, and we've got to get that scale tilted correctly. So that's where we are. That's the big overview. I can keep going if y'all have questions, or if you don't. Okay, great. Oh, two-sided, sorry. Tax rate history, if you look, we're going lowest to newest, oldest to newest, but in 19 and 20, we had a tax raise there. But every year since then, we have done a tax rate decrease. So this is the city taking the no new revenue rate, and as the property values go up, the tax values go down to reduce the new revenue. That has hurt us in a lot of sense that we are not keeping up with the rate of growth and the new items that we have come in and the deterioration of our assets. So we're growing, assets are going down. Next. This slide, you can't see the title there, but it says comparison of tax rates with your other cities. We put it in the M&O and the INS because those two things are going to become very important. And the one you can't see down at the bottom for these guys is the city of Corpus Christi. You can see if we do this whole thing that I'm asking you for, the 3.5%, the unused increment, and the 2 cents on the INS, that's where you'll still fall with your neighboring cities. So you can add numbers, but you can very graphically see that we are significantly lower than our neighbors on our tax rate. Now, if your house is valued higher, you're going to pay more taxes than the guy in Ingleside with, you know, I don't know, living in a mobile home. But our tax rate is significantly lower. So this 2 cents that we're asking for on the INS alone will give us about $3 million in debt. That'll help us pay $3 million of debt. I know we have $68 million that needs to be done. We are not ready to take out that level of debt. We need to start small. We need to get the projects going that we need to get going that are the most important. And then we need to get a feel for where we are, and we need to get a utility rate that's going to start supporting the debt service on that. We don't have the capacity to take out what we need to this first year, but we need to get started. We need to get moving. We need to get our finances healthy, and this is our start. And Robbie put in here future debt amounts may vary with change in interest. I'm just going to say all this is going to change. There's margin on both sides that when things start getting finalized, protests come in, there's all kinds of little tiny hair width adjustments that can occur. So interest rates, things like that. So when I say our tax rate is 0.44055 and it comes in at 0.44056, just know that when we finalize everything up, there's going to be wiggle room. There's wiggle room throughout the year. You know, things change, but we try to keep it very constant on a high level. Go ahead. This is just another, off of that increase, this first year we'll get 1.48 million with M&O and INS combined. We talked about what those things are going to be. The INS, of course, that's the illustration at the bottom, what we intend to do with that money. The V&E is going to take a significant portion of it, but we just think it's really important to get that back operating so that Dale can keep our vehicles healthy. And you know, we don't want to be driving junkers. Those are rolling billboards, and we want to represent our city fairly. So that's what we'll do with it. We've talked about what the M&O will be used for. Of course, the COP 5% increase. We also are going to have significant insurance increase. I heard that TWIA was going up 10%. I think Blake McDavid is working on getting us a little bit better rate than we've had in the past. Our health insurance is going down, but all of our other insurance is going up. So that's $756,000 will be eaten up very quickly with a couple of good bills. Additionally, our sales tax is down. We've said this before, most cities are more sales tax dependent than property tax dependent. We are not. So not only do we not depend on sales tax, the little bit that we are getting is decreasing. So we are going to have to forecast that for a little bit less for the coming year. So that will be a decrease in the M&O side as well. And we're going to work on some stuff to get that back up. And then the next one is hotel motel tax. That's also going down. We are changing that. We've talked about the way that we're going to allocate that. We're going to ask you to adopt that in a little bit. We do expect an influx when we get our short-term rental software online. I know we have a training this month. I think it's at the end of this month. Next month. It's in September. So we're rolling that out. It's a process. It's a big program and involves a lot of people. So we'll see a little influx in that, and then we'll have a better idea, and we'll revisit this in 6 months. I have talked to the recipients of hot tax, and told them that if we get a significant influx, I think we should consider a mid-year award. Our goal is not to keep hot tax. We keep a 365-day reserve. There's not really a need to keep anything beyond that, so we should go ahead and give that out. In the hot tax, we are proposing pulling all the marketing in-house and hiring a professional marketing person to work on that. We've had mixed reviews. I would say it's 50-50 on the love it or hate it from the recipients. I think that the chamber is going to be a really good partner in that. They've been running the EDC and they've been doing a fine job. We just have to get these numbers up, and so this is our try something different. So we're proposing that as well with our hot tax collections. What's next? So you're going to do hot taxes tonight. We also need to take a record vote to hold a public hearing. So we're going to ask you to do that tonight. A record vote just means that you all vote individually, which y'all do anyway, but we have to call it the official thing. We'll have a hearing on the tax rate on the August 27th. We're going to have a hearing and a first reading on August 27th. We will also have those utility rates here for you to adopt. And we will present that, unless I hear strong objections, we will present that to adopt the 5-year plan. That's an amazing thing to come out of the rate study. So, like I said, unless there's any objections, we'll do the whole thing. He's put the whole kit and caboodle in there. So, and then we will do the 2024 tax rate second reading on September 3rd. And then hopefully on September 17th, we will adopt a final budget. Are there any questions? None?
Well, I would just say, I'm thankful that we found the unused increment, that we got
Always.
another little Easter egg there. But that was a good one.
That's a boost, and that helped us come off of that 6 cents, for the full need.
And originally in our original, I guess our first workshop, our first presentation, we were at that 6 cents and 6 cents. And that was, I think we all came to the realization that was going to be a hard pill to swallow. We were prepared to swallow it, but it was going to be a hard sell. And so where we're at today, I think is better for the community.
Well, we have a list of what we need and what we can realistically do. And in my mind, we need to take what we can realistically do, and hopefully we will do those things and do them well, and then be able to take on more. But I don't want to just, hey, Mike, here's, $68 million, good luck. I'm not going to do that to him, or that would be setting us all up for failure. So.
You would retire that day? Is that the day you walk out?
Take my $68 million and go.
That's Donahoe, D-O.
Yeah, spell it right.
So we need to be realistic, but we also need to be working in that direction. The list is not exaggerated, and the list will only grow. So we have to get there. We have to catch up, or we have to reduce services. And it's just a choice we have to make.
Can you just make a comment real quick, how drastically we have to cut services? I just want to make this picture out there, like, this is how bad we have to go.
Sure. So if we were to cut 15 people, we work with 150. That's a big round number. That includes lifeguards. So it's actually, I guess, about 130. 130 people. We would need to cut at least 15 people, or the equivalent dollar amount of 15 people, which I can't tell you what that is. Robbie, he's a math guy. I don't do big math.
Yeah, 80,000 per head.
80,000 a person, we would have to cut that much. So it would be, are we going to not repave any roads and let them all go back to caliche? We'll come in, caliche them over as they start to tear up, and we'll go back to dirt roads. Are we not gonna have any parks? Are we gonna shutter the pool? Everybody says, we need more cops, but when you get to that level of cutting, you're not gonna have to cut a cop, but you're gonna have to cut something. Are you gonna cut a rifle? Or are you gonna cut, administrative staff? Everybody will have to give if we don't get on track. And it's not we know that we have done some things historically that probably weren't in our best interest. EDA loan is a great one. But the decision makers of that day were doing what they thought was best for the city. I'm telling you that, in my opinion, this is what's best for the city to get us on track.
I mean, we've gone over it, and I've sat through many budgets. As much as I would love cut taxes, that's my goal in life, is to cut as much, but with just the last couple of years and all the Easter eggs we keep finding and the money that we have to keep spending that we just don't have, I just don't see another option out of here to make this work, so we're not lowering our reserves and at the same time keeping our city services up to where they need to be.
I did not put in here, and I'm very sorry. Keep going, please. The average household will feel this at about $285 per person, $285 per household, so per year. And then could you keep going, please? Sorry. On my presentation. I would like to see this slide, please. Even saying we're going to increase your taxes, it's about 4 cents, 4.5 cents. You are still so far below your neighboring cities. And, the value that you're getting for those lower taxes, all you have to do is go over and look at Aransas Pass and see what they're doing. And they're paying 3 times as much as you. We operate on 0.66 people per thousand, and that's just the static population, not even the influx of the 30,000 people. Most cities are about 1 to 2 people per thousand. These guys are working their butts off to make it happen on less money, and I don't think asking for 4 cents from our citizens is incredibly outrageous or any more unjustified than asking them for $3 for fire, which, by the way, is the best value in town. So.
Generally speaking on appraisals, though, would you consider us more similar to Portland than Aransas Pass? So even then, we are still paying a significantly lower rate. But
We
as
probably,
far as, you know how it is.
I'm sorry.
Appraisal's low, your tax rate has to go higher to offset, so I feel like Aransas is kind of a bad example, even though they are probably one of the, maybe the highest, but their overall appraisal value of their homes, they're probably much less than Rockport.
Right.
Therefore, their rate has to be higher to offset that. But if you look at Portland, I would say with the growth that they've had and the past years, they're probably the most similar to us as far as appraisal rates go.
Maybe, except they have a huge influx of sales tax.
That's fair, and the industry.
Right, so they have industry almost all of those cities have industry and significant sales tax that we are lacking in. So we're trying to support a city on ad valorem, whereby Portland probably gets 60% of their M&O from sales tax alone, and we're getting 20
I don't
or
think
less.
we really can compare to any of those cities, because we're just such a odd duck out.
It is, yeah.
And one of the reasons we need to go up this year is because appraisal rates did slow. You know, those past years when it was rapidly increasing, that's why the no new revenue rate allowed us to go down. It didn't allow us to, but we did. And so with a slow this year, it puts that no new revenue rate higher, and then we want to add the additional INS on top of that.
I think it's also important to consider with the appraisals, we're gonna continue to see, I believe, see a high number of protests. So we're going to have to understand that in the next couple of years. You're not gonna see a big increase. That's gonna allow us to bring it down.
And that's also the part that's squishy. You know, protests will come in and get settled, some things like that. So those are the things that make it a 1/16 of a cent squishy on each side. So, you know, numbers are gonna be rounded a little bit different, but you're absolutely right.
The only, Robbie had a slide in one of the last presentation of the average household tax bill in certain, we picked some cities.
He did.
Compared.
I should have put that in here.
If we could see that on the next, maybe on the next presentation. I mean, that would be another good comparison.
The average tax bill.
Yes, ma'am. Like this graph here, but it also shows that our
Absolutely.
average tax bill in City of Rockport is less than.
It's
Centon.
still less, yeah.
It's still less than Centon and Portland. I
We'll
believe
get
we're-
that on there next next meeting.
And that was even with our, I think we did our increase too.
Oh, it's in the proposed budget, which is on your stick that I gave you there. It's green.
Okay.
But we'll get it on the screen next
Just
week.
so the public can see it.
Absolutely.
On our presentation.
Just kind of go a step further now, I know the next meeting is gonna be a public hearing for the tax rate. So we're gonna have public coming out here speaking, maybe we can put something out there beforehand, like these little.
So my intent was to get
Why, like just a little bit. Ahead of time.
this guy out there.
Can we get somebody to start?
Yeah, I think the comparisons are important as
Okay.
well.
Well,
Both Ryan
this-
and Robbie as well.
This whole thing will be on the web, and then we'll do some social media stuff too. We'll get it out there.
And
Just get more engagement.
maybe some out there on the tables.
Sure, whatever you
Just
want.
some handouts.
Yep. So we now have, if you go to our webpage, there is a big button that says, budget tax rate. So we're dumping a lot of relevant information there. Like the increment thing that I handed out to you, that's been put up there. This will be put up there. The proposed budget will be up there. So our website is gonna have a lot of information, and then we'll push it out.
For us to consider the audience, you're gonna have a small handful of people that are gonna dive into the data of it, and then you're gonna have a visual audience. And I think it's important that for the majority, we need to get that visual audience to understand better by minimizing the information we're giving into something that's easy to read, interpret.
Okay.
I think that's important.
Yes, ma'am. Anything else? Awesome, thank you.
Are we prepared right now to try to schedule a date for the hearing on the proposed tax rate? I don't believe we are. This item number 9. Consider record vote, schedule date, time for required public hearing on the proposed tax rate. Are we prepared to do that?
Mayor and council, yes, sir, we need you to do that. So Anna over at the appraisal district can put in her final numbers. Robbie can give you the details that need to be considered, date and time, I guess. And we will need you to vote for us to go forward with the proposed rate.
All right.
I make a motion to approve agenda item number 9 with recommendation, city council set the public hearing on tax rate on August 27th, 2024 at 6:30 PM.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Further concern?
What day did you say?
August 27th.
August 27th, 2024 at 6:30 PM.
Art didn't hear you very well.
Other questions? If not, we'll call for a vote. Ward 1.
Do we need to do the tax rate? Do we need to mention the rate?
Yes. I'm sorry?
Can you mention the tax rate in the motion?
For the, can I just continue?
Yes, keep going.
For the proposed total tax rate of .405294 per $100 of valuation.
Thank you.
And I still second it.
And we still have motion second. Any further questions? Recorded vote. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. It is unanimous. Next item, considerations. Consider the request for a conditional use permit at 2562 FM 3036. Mr. Dietrich isn't here. Yeah, we're going. Yes, ma'am, come right in. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, it is 8:01, and we are in public hearing. Thank you. Go right ahead.
Hi, my name is Bertina Schreiber, and we own and live at the property of 2562 FM 3036. I was here a week ago, and the zoning and planning, I guess you all received that information, but they said they were going to recommend to the city council and for this meeting that we be considered to receive this conditional use permit. It took us a little while to get there, but that was the outcome of the zoning and planning hearing that night. So I'm just following up today to say that we had a lot of different communication from the city, what we could have in place. First, we couldn't have it, and then we could possibly have it as an office if we would submit a permit. So we did that, and then we received an email from Carrie Dietrich saying that we had to move it off of our property. And then that was followed by an email saying, no, we could leave it on there as an RV, but we had to disconnect it from utilities. So then it wouldn't be used at all. And it's really not your traditional recreational vehicle. It is a tiny home that's 399 square feet. It is, has a metal roof. It looks like a little house. It has an air conditioning mini split unit that's on the ground outside of it. It has a front porch and stairs on the side. And so it's not something you hook up to a truck and move it down the road. Okay. So we felt like the compromise here would be to go back to the idea of having it as an office, because my husband did start a new business. He has gotten quite busy. We've needed it for office space, and we actually have a computer desk and printer and all of that over there to try to get it out of our house. So it's all on our 2.13 acre property, which is zone commercial, though we do live there. And so at this point, I would ask gracious consideration of the council to allow us to have the conditional use permit, granting us the ability to use it since it is in place. The original cost of the building is $70,000, and we have a $12,000 slab, and it is tied down to that slab. And the code enforcement officer has seen it and said it was better tied down than he had seen in anything else in Rockport. So it is very substantial, and I guess that's about. Yeah, that's what we propose, is to be able to use it as an office.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? This is a public hearing. Anyone else want to address this particular item? If not,
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Consider approval of the first two readings of ordinance number 1942, granting conditional use permit for the purpose of allowing the use park model RV as an office on the property located at 2562 FM 3036, also known as 76 Joseph Hollis Survey, 2.131 acres, City of Rockport, Aransas County, Texas, subject to compliance with conditions stated within this ordinance as well as those stipulated in the City of Rockport Code of Ordinances, repealing all ordinances in conflict herewith, providing for severability and providing an effective date. Do I have a motion?
Hold on, Mayor. I think we're now going to discuss this topic. We had a public hearing. Now we're going to do the presentation.
Okay.
I'm here on behalf of Carrie Dietrich, our building official and community planner. She's not able to be with us this evening. We did hear this last week with the Planning and Zoning Commission. The city did make a presentation to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we let them know that the park model RV that is being used as an office is in violation of our codes of ordinances. It is a park model RV, and it is not allowed in its present location. The owners are asking for a conditional use permit to allow that RV to be on the property. Our recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission was to deny the request. The Planning and Zoning Commission is recommending to you to approve the request. If you do approve the request, just remember that this is an RV. It is in violation of the ordinance. I would recommend that if you do move to approve the request, that specifically that this park model RV be allowed to be used for an office only. And by granting that conditional use permit, if somebody were to come in and decide they wanted to change it and use it as a mother-in-law house or use it as a vacation rental, it would still be in violation of our codes of ordinances. So if we allowed them to have the RV on the site, but it could only be used for an office, it could not be used for something else. So we do have one member of the Planning and Zoning Commission that is here tonight if you need to ask questions about why the Planning and Zoning Commission decided to grant the request.
I would like to hear why. If Kim, come up here.
Ms. Hesley?
Kim Hesley, Planning and Zoning, 2003 Tooley Park Drive. We really felt like, even though this is categorized as an RV, I drove by and looked at the property, looked at the unit, and it's very well done. We had a lot of discussion about the fact that it is very well done and it fits the property, and we really felt like this was a unique situation. The concerns were brought that if this is allowed, then there might be additional requests for RVs to be used as offices around town. But this, even though it's technically, I guess, categorized as an RV, it does not look like an RV. And they've done such substantial work, to, put it on the property, to tie it to the slab, that we just felt like it was a unique situation that warranted approval, so.
I have a couple concerns, if I'm allowed to talk now. So the reason why I wanted to hear from you is because I kind of went over the P&Z, kind of talked a bit. I think where I'm having an issue with it is that if it's against our code of ordinances and we're allowing one person to do it, no matter how nice it is, that's opening the door for others to come in here and to do the same thing. This kind of goes back to the structural buildings that we have to keep approving during council. Why don't we just go back to our ordinances and change it there so we don't have to keep it? Because what's going to happen is you're going to have other people coming in here requesting these cups to do these RVs, our park models on their property. And if we say no, if we say yes to one person, then we're going to be hard to say no to everyone else that comes in here. If we're going to set our standards, we got to keep with those standards. And we can't, just because one person is nicer than the other, I don't think how we should be working it. I think we should be going back to the code of ordinances if we feel like it needs to be changed, or we feel like some people should be able to have certain other models on their property beyond just RVs. That is gonna, I think that's a much better way of doing it than having to keep approving these cups on individual items. That's just my opinion on the matter, on it.
I agree with some of her comments as far as going back to looking at the statutes and the restrictions that we have here. I thought that was the probably one of the things to look at the beginning of this is if we allow this cup, and again, I think listening to planning and zoning and what have you, that it's going with their recommendation. But I think we do need to go back and look at our statutes or what have you that are describing this as an RV, because I've been there, I've looked at it. Doesn't look like it's a tiny house or tiny office, I guess, is what we're describing it as. And that's what it is. It doesn't appear to be any kind of an RV to me. And so I would be in favor of looking at the statutes and going back, and if something needs fixing that was done in the past and reevaluating and what have you, I'd be in favor of that.
I need to make it clear that it is not our code of ordinance that is labeling that as an RV. It is manufactured as a recreational vehicle. It's called a park model RV, and that's how it's registered with the state of Texas, and we're not making that decision. That thing was manufactured as a recreational vehicle. That's why we have the request.
It's a tiny home, and they're built under the RIVA standards, RIVA standards versus a HUD or a contemporary building. So they're able to be made, I don't want to say cheaper because they're substantial buildings, but they're your tiny homes, and they're either park models or tiny homes, and you see them. Communities are putting these tiny home communities up all over the place.
It is registered in the state of Texas as a
an RV.
recreational vehicle.
Yeah, it's built under the RIVA standards versus a HUD or.
And to address some of Councilperson Hatman's claims, each request that comes through the Planning and Zoning Commission, the Planning and Zoning Commission listens to each request, and they make a recommendation based on the merit of the request. And that, that's what they do, and they make the recommendation to you. So, if we had 100 of these things coming in, we have to take each one of them on their own merit and listen to the request and make a decision.
But your request was asked to deny. But you did a deny to them, that was your request.
Our recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission was to deny the request because it is registered as a recreational vehicle, and our codes and ordinances do not allow the use
So
of the
that's what I'm gonna go back to. It's against our code of ordinances. So if we are gonna keep having these requests come in, just like I said, the structural buildings that we keep having come in, we need to start looking at going back to the original point of it. Go and look at our code of ordinances. Where can we put in there? If we want to allow nicer park models or different types of, if they're under different circumstances or requirements, I just was wondering if there's a way that we can do that, because if we open this door, I can promise you there's gonna be more people coming in here asking for these.
So we as staff have continually relayed the message that this is an RV, it is not allowed. We also cannot deny a person their right to have a hearing for a variance or a CUP or whatever. So if we tell 100 people no and 99 of them still want a variance, it doesn't matter what our code says, they're still gonna come and ask for a variance.
Yeah.
Our code is very clear. An RV is not allowed.
And I guess my question is, do you think it would be possible, regardless of what we vote on today, if we can go back, if this is gonna be something that is gonna be voted on, or come in front of us a lot of times, that we can maybe help not have it so many times by going back to our code of ordinances and maybe looking at that and seeing if it's, would you feel that'd be beneficial or not?
I don't think there's anything more clear that we could put in there. RVs are not allowed.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay.
Is incredibly clear for us. I understand that they put money and time, and there may be a different circumstance for this landowner, and you have to make that decision. My staff can only follow the code, and it says RVs not allowed, so they go to the lady and say RVs aren't allowed. Code enforcement says RVs aren't allowed, so they're gonna go give her a ticket or whatever code enforcement does. My guys are just doing their job. So there's nothing more stringent that we can put in the code than they are not allowed. But you, as the governing body, get to make a decision if there's a unique circumstance for this.
And I think that's the point of the cut, is it's a one-off, if you will. Now, we may see more one-offs coming
And
down
that's
the
what I'm
road.
saying, we don't
but-
get to deny anybody their right to come and appeal to you.
But we don't have to approve every cut.
You don't have to approve any.
And just because this one may or may not get approved, next week, one just like it may not get the recommendation. I mean, it's a,
Now,
am I
it's,
right? Or
if
or
it has,
we
if
set
it's
ourselves?
just like it,
Well, I'm
that
sorry,
would be
not just like.
selective enforcement,
But, well, yeah,
So, just to provide some clarity, I mean, just you know, it's like I mean, it's real estate here, so, right, no two properties are similarly situated, right? So in your zoning ordinance, y'all have adopted standards that y'all need to consider when you're adopting a CUP, okay? So if the request that's, and Vanessa's right, the staff has no discretion. If it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. Y'all have that discretion now to determine, well, is there a circumstance, you know, will it affect the neighbors? Well, are there sufficient utilities? You know, all the standards that are in 23.4 of your zoning ordinance, you need to make that determination. As a legislative body, there are mechanisms by which you can say, look, you know, we have these general standards, but you know, this is just you know, no two properties are the same. This is a unique circumstance. We're going to allow this exception, and that's obviously within your discretion. That's why y'all put the process in here. So in evaluating this, if you look at the criteria for CUPs and what it takes to grant one, if they meet those criteria, then obviously it's within your discretion to approve it.
Can I speak to address this issue for a little more clarity? Something that came out of the meeting last week, that if this conditional use permit was.
Can she come back there and speak?
Is that all right?
Yes, go right ahead.
It was stated last week at the meeting that we are a unique property since we are commercial, and we don't have a neighbor to the left or to the right of us, so we just happen to be sort of isolated there alone. But it was also discussed that this would only be a conditional use permit granted to us as a current owner. If we sold, this permit would stop, it would cease, because it would be for this individual permit that was granted because we applied for it as owners. So I think that needs to be clarified. And also, last week I went in to protest one of our properties, and I was at the appraisal district, and the first thing we discovered is that we've already been taxed on it because that's an extra 400 square feet they've included in our square footage for our home. And I knew there was a problem because we're 2,700 square feet and we were being taxed on 3,151. And that just didn't seem right to me in 1 year that would have changed. And then, so when I went down to talk to, at the desk review, he said, well, we have the small house here on your property, we have that figured into your square footage. And I said, well, we're in a discussion right now whether we're gonna get to have a permit to keep it on the property. So if it doesn't, you know, they take that off. So it's created revenue in the way of taxes already. And there was another point I was gonna make. Oh, and he's the one that brought up, he said, well, why are you being denied? And I said, well, it's an ordinance of the city. And he said, well, just around the corner, they're building tiny houses. He said, I can show you this property. It's an acreage, and they've got all kinds of tiny houses that are being constructed. And he said, there are also other tiny homes in the area. He said, so why have you been singled out? And I said, well, I can't speak to those other things. I don't know that. I just know my property and what we're trying to accomplish. So there seems to be, I have seen in commercial and residential properties where there are other buildings on the properties. So I think it's already being done, and maybe people are unaware of it, Carrie had asked me where I had seen these, and I said, well, they're all over the place. I'm not really a kind of person that wants to rat someone out, but there are, you see them. There are little offices, spaces behind. There's a local bar and grill that has an office space behind it, and it's on their property, and that's a commercial property, and they have it in place. So I don't feel like I'm asking for anything that's quite that unusual, especially when you add the caveat that if we sold the property, this conditional use permit would end. So that's just a little clarification.
If I can.
Go ahead.
I apologize, the young lady back there, I didn't catch your name, a little hard of hearing. I just want to make sure, I understand Mike's comments, but it did come out of planning and zoning, looking at this particular property under this conditional use permit as a unanimous recommendation, correct?
Yes, it did. And conditional use permits are really limited to when a piece of property, we've got a situation where it can't be solved by rezoning it a different way, that this is really the only option.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask you this too. When the purpose of this is to serve as an office for what? Do you have construction going on there? Are you selling lots? Are you going to?
No. My husband started what started out as a handyman business that's turned into a remodeling, more of a remodeling business and larger contracts that he's secured in the last year. And he's a builder. We moved here from Austin, and he's a builder, and I'm a realtor, and so we were retiring here, and he couldn't stand to be retired, even though I asked him not to do this. That's an aside, but anyway, that's the reason, is because we've outgrown our house with all his stuff. And the garage is full, and we have a little outbuilding that he's got tools in, and it's just, it's become way bigger than we thought. So this has just been, it turned into a real asset to us for that purpose.
Other questions?
Are we in the cup? Can we designate the use only as office space and not as an accessory dwelling unit?
That is how the application was put in.
We can do that in that cup and be.
Yes, sir.
Okay. But then the cup would die with it not die. Sorry.
It would expire.
If the property's another transaction occurs, the cup is done.
Right.
You can put that as a condition of the conditional use permit.
Would that be recommendation of staff that the cup would cease to exist?
We were told that was the case by the discussion that night last week, and also on the unanimous vote, it was restated that it would only be for this ownership.
And you have to be realistic. The next owner's gonna come in and look at it and say, oh, 2 houses. Or, a house and an office.
Yeah.
And then they're gonna be in front of you asking for the same thing. I mean, they're not gonna tear it down when they leave.
No.
And the next.
No, it would have to be moved, actually. If it was not granted, it'd have to be moved. It's tied down, it could be untied, and it could be transported, but a lot of difficulty. It's so much bigger than an RV.
And that point is exactly why y'all allow accessory structures as a not to RVs.
Okay, well, I feel satisfied with my question, so I just wanted to get those clarified. I'll make a motion to approve the first of the 2 readings of ordinance 1942 granting a conditional use permit for the purpose of allowing the use of park model RV as an office on the property located at 2562 FM 3036, also known as A76 Joseph Hollis Survey, 2.131 acres, City of Rockport, Aransas County, Texas, subject to compliance with the conditions stated within the ordinance, as well as those stipulated in the City of Rockport Code of Ordinances, repealing all ordinances in conflict there, providing severability, and providing an effective date. I'd also like to add only of the use of an office building and nothing else. For the current option.
I have a motion to approve. With condition to be only in office. I have a motion and a second. Any further question? If not, I'll call for a vote. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Next item, consider request for rezoning properties located at 2022 FM 3036 from B1 General Business District to R2 Single Family Dwelling District. And before we do that, we're going to take 10 minutes right quick because I had somebody ask for a break a little while ago.
I'll give you shorter than 10 minutes if you want, or you're gonna take a break now? Or
Yeah, we'll be right back.
Absolutely.
Are back in session. Mr. Bond.
Hi, thank you. Get the opportunity to come meet and talk with everybody. I was in last week in front of P&Z to present a request for variance in the comprehensive plan that the city put forth for the community, and ask for a variance in that. I would like to state that was granted a unanimous approval by the board, which was very nice. The city objected to it because it wasn't consistent with the comprehensive plan. I would like to state that I respect that point, but I would like to give a little personal testimony, and that I've been in development for 40 years and planned communities in several states, in numerous municipalities and cities and private and developments. And in the 40 years that I've been doing at any project of any size of 20, 30, 50 acres to 5,000 acres, I've never hit a concept plan from what I thought it would be to where it would be at the end of the game. So concept plans and comprehensive plans, I get them, they're great maps, but I view them as viewable, as breathable documents that will adapt to the market, provided it's a win-win for the city. And I think this request is a win-win for the city, where we're asking that some of the commercial property be rezoned for a R2 residential. And that's for two reasons. Our builder that I was able to bring to this community, D.R. Horton, which is the world's largest home builder, is building an affordable home for first-time home buyers, something I've been working to try to bring in this community for 15 years. I personally worked with one of my development groups that I work with out of Houston, Johnson Development. They had a commercial division called Lasco that's done retail development in multiple states and millions of square feet. We contracted the corner of 5 acres of the Kokomo project for them to put a 7-Eleven in the corner and do some retail on some of the property that I'm here to talk about today. We run the contract for 2 years with them. We got the 7-Eleven deal done. They were unable to deliver or bring any other retail user to that project. And very simple reason is nobody was ready to come, because retail is supported by rooftops, and you can't build retail and they come. You build residential and then the retail comes. So the site's not quite ready. I think fortunate for the city and for us as developers, this will allow us two things to do. Gives us an opportunity to collaborate with our neighbor to the south to work on some detention, because that's where D.R. Horton was going next. We'd like to put that off and work with the landowner, the developer to the south, to regionalize that detention pond, and we're working on that. The engineers are working on that. That's where D.R. Horton, so that we can then move D.R. Horton to these commercial reserves. You see the preliminary plat. We've got 44 lots that we're proposing. The lots are smaller than, and oh, by the way, this is like the third change, I think, from the original plat that we filed in Kokomo, just to give you an idea that these plans are breathable and they should adjust and adapt to the market, provided they're good for the community. And I'm all about what's best for the community. My family's been here as long as the Brundretts, and I want my kids and grandkids to be in an area that I'm protecting and help protect what the valuable resources are of this community. But in any event, as you can see in the plan, we've planned for some detention pond. Our engineers are working on that if that's necessary. We've been asked to address making that an amenity. That had been my plan, and now that I've gotten involved in the Kokomo project, I'm trying to get something more pleasing and aesthetic for residential communities than just what we would call rack and stack lots. So we're asking for a small variance. We have 50 by 145 lots in phase 4 and 5. This is phase 6. We're putting off phase 5, which is 50-foot by 150-foot lots, as I recall. These lots are 50-foot front by 115 feet. Be a little smaller backyard. The price point's going to be a little bit different. It's going to be at a price point that'll bring in perhaps more buyers that can buy first-time homes. So that's the request. That's the purpose for the request. It will help, I think, create anywhere from $15 to $20 million in tax put on your tax rolls, versus what commercial, I don't know what what projections would be from sales tax if and when it were to be developed into commercial. I think there's an abundance of commercial property on the bypass, and I think it will all be filled, probably not in my lifetime, but it will when rooftops get built, and we'll see a big transition from Business 35 to the bypass. I've seen that in my life, in my career development of 40 years, happen numerous times. It will happen. The commercial will move to the bypass when the residences and the rooftops get in that area. And so that's my presentation, and I'm asking for the city to consider approving the change in the zone. Anybody have any questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
say these lots are projected to be a little smaller.
It's a public hearing.
Yes.
You can close it out.
Yeah. Go ahead and have a seat. We're gonna see if anybody else wants to talk more. Mike will come get to us. Anybody else want to address this issue? Anybody else here that wants to talk about this during the public hearing? Mr. Donahoe. Let me read the caption here, and we'll go from here. Let me read it instead of,
Close your public hearing.
yes, we're going to.
Sorry.
Thank you. It is 8:40, we're closing the public hearing. Let me read the caption. Consider the approval of first of two readings, ordinance number 1943, amending the official zoning map as stipulated in Article 4.1 of the City of Rockport zoning ordinance number 1027 by changing the zoning of land from B1 General Business District for property located at 2202 FM 3036, also known as lots 64A, 64B, 64C, as shown on the Kokomo PH 6 preliminary plat and lot 65, block 1, Kokomo PH 2. More accurately describes on the attached Exhibit A to R2, Second Family Dwelling District, repealing all ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability and providing an effective date. Mr. Donahoe.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Same thing on this one. We did go before the Planning and Zoning Commission last week, and they voted unanimously to approve the request. Staff did recommend denial, and the reason we recommend denial is that we looked at our comprehensive plan and our future land use map, and the comprehensive plan and the future land use map shows the bypass feeder road as a business corridor. And we were just sticking to our guns to ensure that the comprehensive plan was being followed, and the future land use map, it's not etched in stone or anything, but that is one of the business corridors that we see for the city of Rockport. And, the requester did, make some valid points about building rooftops that attracts, the commercial and everything. But it was originally platted for commercial. They did try to sell it. Now they're coming back and requesting a rezone and asking for homes along the bypass feeder road. Some of the things that we thought about as staff was possibly a recommendation for some sound barrier along the bypass feeder road. If they're gonna build homes there, maybe a sound barrier to help those that do buy homes along there. Again, we have Ms. Hesley here from the Planning and Zoning Commission. If you want to hear from her, she's basically going to tell you the same kind of thing, that, they considered the request, they looked at it, and they determined that they thought that this would be best use of the property. So, be happy to answer any questions that y'all have, or you can call Mr. Bone back up and ask him questions.
Okay. You have anything you'd care to add? Okay. Okay. Council, questions?
I just had a question regarding, it was stated that the intention for the lots were to allow for greater affordability for new home buyers. What is that projection of costs for these homes?
Today, or last year, or next year?
That's why I said
We projected to be selling homes at $350,000 to $400,000 when we started this project. That was when interest rates were 2.9%. Interest rates are now 8%. We're selling those same homes, or D.R. Horton is, excuse me, for in the 200,000s. So, the development business is breathable and malleable, and so our hope is to bring homes in the 200s. They're selling homes in the 200s now, that's possibly in the low 200s, 250,000.
That's on the bigger lots.
The finished, single-family finished homes is where we're selling. We're hoping to sell those in the low 200s just now.
Other questions?
I do. I actually commute through there to go home from work, and I noticed as you're coming, and I'm trying to look at my map, make sure I'm looking in the right direction. As you're coming, say, from Portland into Rockport, you're coming to the end of the bypass. As you're dropping down the hill, I noticed that there are several homes, about 4 or 5 that are partially through completion. Is that the ones here on the south end?
That's correct.
And you're asking to go basically from there down towards the end?
From that curb cut all the way to the boundary of what was the 5 acres, that's the Lasco group that is now 2 acres, so it would be up to that whole stretch, all the way up to that existing commercial.
That helps me understand, Mike's comment, so if you turn around and face south, we already have homes that are on the bypass.
Yes, sir.
That were approved at some other time.
Yes, sir.
So this, and Mike's got some good ideas, possibly some sound mitigation or what have you. But if this was to be allowed, we already have some homes that are on that bypass. This would just be a few more.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Mayor, just a comment, you know, it is on the future land use map and our comp plan as it's commercial. And, you know, I don't think that map is wrong. You know, best land use on a highway is probably commercial, but y'all marketed it, and we've tried to make it commercial, and we're not there yet. And like you stated, the commercial will follow the rooftops. And so I don't think we're gonna run out of property, probably not in my lifetime, on the bypass that's available for commercial development. So we've tried to market it as commercial, we're not getting there, and I don't think it's our move to keep the developer from being able to develop the project, or continue the project, and also be able to provide something that we've been asking for a while, and if this is I don't know what the word we're using now is, affordable housing or whatever the word is, but, you know, if they're in the 200,000s, I think that is very good for the city of Rockport, you know, to be able to get people into a home.
It will help keep D.R. Horton here at a time when everybody knows the market. From the date that we started, this is gone. And so it hasn't been the easiest of ride for them, but this change will help keep them here, keep them continuing to take down lots. We've reduced the lot prices on the balance of the project. We're introducing a lower price point to help to continue to keep D.R. Horton. I said it before, I've worked 15 years to bring a production, regional, national home builder to this community. It's been one of my missions to bring, I don't like the word affordable because it has connotations of subsidized. This isn't subsidized home. This is people that are first responders, are people that are working that, you know, instead of paying $1,000 to an apartment in a rent, they can have their own and be homeowners. So we're trying to put taxpayers, add to the tax base and home buyers and build families and help this community. So, and that's important to me, Brad, you know that.
No, I think it's real important to be a production builder is able to bring that price point down, just on the economics of the deal.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I just have one more, just because I can't tell the difference in all these maps. Is there any addition to entrances from the bypass that would create any type of traffic safety concern?
All of the curb cuts that you see, we had those all in place. They're 4 what we call curb cuts. Those were approved by TxDOT. Okay. We don't anticipate or have any plans to introduce or put any more curb cuts or create. If we're not going to do that. We don't have any plan to. There was some conversation that I had with another councilman that we would support that intersection, not that that's in our purview and not that there's anything that we can do, but we would be happy to help that intersection, TxDOT will need to address that as traffic increases, because it is kind of
Need a light protection.
it's a little dysfunctional, to put it best, and
Yeah,
so.
that's my only concern, is if we would
yeah.
have any kind of addition of entrances into, with accommodating that, those lots, if there would be any kind of proposed safety issue.
We're not planning any new entrances, and so we've already worked with TxDOT to get those permitted entrances that are in place that you see.
Okay.
When you drive, you'll see their curb cuts. 2 or 3 of them are just bored about 5 feet off and they stub out. And they're no more than what, if you drive by the, or what you see on the plat, there'll be no more than what you see on that plat and that preliminary plat.
And I think it'd be hard, I mean, TxDOT would have to take a long look at it again
Yeah.
in order to approve more.
Yeah, we
It may
don't
not happen, you know, the TxDOT may not do that, may not allow it.
There's gonna be a reduction of one of the curb cuts that's here up on the far north side. And so that one is not platted to be used into the entrance to this. Additionally, while I'll agree that it's against our land use plan, we already have a traffic problem right here. Putting a 7-Eleven right here is gonna compound that. Reducing this curb cut and bringing this traffic back to here, and then reducing it to this, limited number of homes versus a 7-Eleven and a commercial shopping center is probably gonna help the situation.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Anyone else?
I move to approve item 11 as presented.
I have a
Second.
motion, I have a second. I
I'll
have a
second.
motion and a second. Any further questions? If not, we'll call for a vote. Ward 1,
Aye.
Ward 2,
Aye.
Ward 3,
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye, it's unanimous.
Thank you all very much. Appreciate your time.
Next item, consider approval of first of 2 readings ordinance 1944, establishing Convention and Visitors Bureau Advisory Board and providing for the duties of such board, providing a severability clause, providing an effective date. Ms. Ronner.
Mayor and council, we have, sorry.
It's late.
I know, right? We've talked about bringing the advertising portion of the CVB into, or under the umbrella of the city, and having that person report to a board. Much like Brittany reports to a parks board, there'd be an advisory board for that person. So we're making sure that we get everybody represented that needs some service out of the board. So what you have is an ordinance before you. I've already been approached with one question. If Councilmember Hatman doesn't mind, I'll go ahead and speak to that. Or if you do, you can ask your question.
You want me to speak on it, or you want?
No, I will, if you don't mind.
Yeah, you can.
So the question was brought up that the chamber president is an ex officio member as opposed to a member of the board. Our thought process with that is that most likely the chamber would have the tourism seat on the board, but having the hired personnel, including myself and our tourism person, as ex officio, there would be some continuity whereby the board turns over every 2 years, 4 years, every 2 years. So the chamber would theoretically be the tourism spot on the board, but then the ex officios would be constant, whereby that chamber person can only serve a 2-year term, if that makes sense. And we don't have to do it that way, it's just the thought behind it.
So the past presidents would serve as the.
Nope. In my mind, the chamber gets to put up who they want. They're all voted on by you guys. So there's just qualifications for each one, and one of them is the tourism sector. And I think you would be hard pressed to find someone qualified that wasn't maybe a member of the TDC or a tourism professional. So basically, we're putting the hired staff to stay continuous while the elected staff is gonna have turnover. Keep going.
My concern was, so I know that my concern was with them not having the vote. They were a big driving force in hot funds that we gave to, so they could use that for our tourism here. I just feel like taking that vote away from them, I just don't feel 100% completely comfortable with that. I think that they did in the past years, they came up with their logo, they've done, and that logo is really on billboards, on TV commercials, it's out there, even regenerating it. So I guess my concern is them not having a voting, and I feel like they're not gonna have a voice, and I don't feel comfortable with that, I guess, is where I'm coming from on that.
So we could change the tourism spot to a chamber spot, but understand the chamber is membership driven. You have to buy into and be a part of the chamber. It's not a hotelier who's doing his thing. It's a group that you have to buy in to be a part of, which is fine. Just know that if you're going to put them a seat, that's what it is. They're representing the people that pay to be a part of that.
But they're also representing, they also have the visitor center, and they are I guess they are membership driven, but they also are people that represent a lot of the businesses that are in our community.
Yep.
So they are the ones that people go to when they're trying to figure out what to do in Rockport, trying to figure out, I go there so I can promote my business, I can promote to these people and all that. So they're gonna have a lot of insight and a lot of knowledge on that end of it. So I don't look at it as a membership driven thing, I'm looking at it as this is what they've been doing for us for so many years, and they do a lot of our promoting, and so there's so much more than that, than just the membership-driven thing. So I know that they have a concern not being able to vote as well, so I want to just address that, and that's just where I'm coming from on that end.
So would you want to add, just a seventh seat, is that what you're saying? Like
I would like them to be a voting member.
That'll give us an odd number too.
that would give an odd number, which would be beneficial, I think.
Yeah, I just think.
That way there's not a split vote, not that there would be.
Is it gonna cause any kind of conflict looking at any of the other positions, thinking of who would potentially apply into those seats? That's something we need to ensure there's complete fairness, transparency across the board with this process when it's at establishment. I know it's gonna be something we have to grow with, but, and I agree with Andrea.
Every seat has qualifications, so the qualification of that one would be that you have to be a member of the chamber. Or if you want to put the president on there and remove them as an ex officio, that's fine too, but then you lose the chamber continuity on the backside, because they're gonna have to put up someone else to be reelected. They don't have to, I guess they could keep putting up the same person. It would be a chamber choice. But there's qualifications for every seat on there. We need to be very clear, though, that the chamber and the CVB are two very different things, and they're funded in two very different ways, and we can't mix those up. So the chamber has been doing some marketing, and the CVB has been doing marketing. We're gonna continue the CVB. That's the part that the city is taking in. We're not taking out chamber marketing. They get to do with their money what they want.
I just thought of this. So, just a thought. I'm not saying this way. So, with that 7th seat, could we do something with like the TDC, since they're the tourism development thing, and then we can keep the president as the ex-officio,
Yeah,
keep them as
that's
on there?
that was my thing. So we have a seat for tourism, and you have a TDC that is a function of the chamber. So it's not a function of the CVB, which uses the hot taxes. It's a function of the chamber. And in my mind, the chamber would put the president of the TDC or a member of the TDC on the board that is a voting member. And then again, the paid staff, whether it's myself or my successor or whoever, and the paid staff of the chamber and the paid staff of the CVB have the continuity of knowledge.
Non-voting ex.
Right, we're not voting.
Yeah.
We're still a member, we're advisory, and we're not gonna rotate out every 2 years. So I think let's just put a chamber seat and let the chamber decide who they put.
Let's put a chamber seat. I would feel comfortable with that.
That's number 7, chamber then. It's not, I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not gonna be easy, it's not gonna be perfect, it's gonna be work. But but I think everybody's ready to hustle
I
and
think
try something different.
if we can just try that and see how it works and then kind of go from there, I think they should have a voting,
Not a problem.
so.
Do they all have to be, residents of the city within the city limits
So,
for that one?
They have to be right, and then remember, we have the 2 seats. One, if the county wants to join, they will get a seat, and one, if the town of Fulton joins, then they will get a seat, just the same as we do. So the 3 taxing entities will have 1 vote each.
So we're just, if we're approving this, I'm just making that one change to add the 7th seat for the chamber.
Got it.
Okay.
So what y'all have in front of y'all, the resolution is a little bit different than what was posted in the packet. I made some non-substantive changes to it, added some definitions and things like that that weren't in there. And the one thing that I did add, just kind of for efficiency's sake, was just to make to make the term staggered. So you're not having to reappoint an entire board for 2 years, but annually you'll be replacing half, or at least in this case now, 4 in 1 year and 3 in the following year.
Are you comfortable voting on that with the changes you've made?
So, the chamber would take seat 7, but we have 2 other potential voting entities, so would we need to correct that?
They're-
Add an additional reserved in case?
They're left vacant, so they can join at any time.
I know, but it lists 8, and if the chamber takes that number 7, it only.
That was one of the changes that were made.
Yep.
Oh, it is, okay, I just wanted to make sure that.
Okay.
Yeah, there's only 6 right now.
Okay.
Any
So
other-
I guess then if they join, we'll come back and add a seat.
Well, the vote, or the motion is to accept this plus add the chamber, then the conform.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I make a motion to accept the ordinances with adding the change, to adding a 7th seat for the chamber.
I have a motion, to have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second. Any other questions? We'll call for a vote. Ward 1?
Aye.
Ward 2?
Aye.
Ward 3?
Aye.
Ward 4?
Aye.
Mayor, aye. It's unanimous. Consider approval, first of 2 readings of ordinance 1945, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 106, Vegetation, Article 1, General, Section 106-7, Tree Mitigation and Preservation Account, repealing all ordinances to the extent they are in conflict, providing for severability, providing for penalties, and providing for an effective date. Anybody, Mike?
Yes, sir, Mayor and Council. This is first reading of an ordinance. We have the tree preservation and mitigation account, which allows the tree committee, if you will, to make expenditures of the tree mitigation fund. And all we're asking for here is to put it in ordinance that expenditures in excess of $2,000 must have council approval. So if they're gonna spend more than $2,000, they would come in, make a presentation to council, and council would approve or disapprove the expenditure. And anything under $2,000 would be approved by the city manager. So if they just had day-to-day things, I know right now we have rental of some billboards and things like that, but if they came in and they wanted to buy some watering bags or something that was less than $2,000, it would give the city manager the authority to approve that. So that's all we're asking for here.
I move to approve item 13 as presented.
Have a motion, to have a second. Have a motion and a second. Any other further question? I'm losing my voice. If not, we'll call for a vote. Ward 1?
Aye.
Ward 2?
Aye.
Ward 3?
Aye.
Ward 4?
Aye.
Mayor, aye, it's unanimous. Number 14, consider approval of second final reading ordinance number 1940, amending Code of Ordinances, Chapter 86, Streets and Sidewalks and Other Public Places by deleting Article 5, Parades, and replacing said Article 5 as special events in the attached form, as may be modified in the future by ordinances. Adopting penalties for violation of this ordinance and an amount not to exceed $500 per violation, repealing all other ordinances in conflict therewith, providing for severability, providing an effective date and publication. Yes, Ms. Goodwin.
So there was one error that we did find in the ordinance, and we have corrected it. For private events and gatherings and activities on private property, we had one place 100 people and another place 300, so we matched those at 300. So that correction was made. But in your motion to approve, if you're going to approve it, I would need you to include effective date for October the 1st.
Okay. Questions?
I move to approve item 14 as presented with the pertinent changes with an effective date of October 1st, 2024.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Not, we'll call for a vote. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. Unanimous. Item 15, consider approval of resolution 2024-18R, determining that certain expenses meet the requirements of the hotel occupancy tax and approve expenses for fiscal year 2024-2025. Ms. Goodwin?
So this year, we're going to ask that the city council approve a resolution that determines that these expenses have met the requirements of the hotel occupancy tax in the state code, and that also to approve all the expenses. I did include 2 exhibits. One says city hot funds and the other says city awards. And these were the items that you all discussed at your special meeting. And we're just asking for approval.
Questions?
I move to approve item 15 as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Not, we'll call for a vote. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Aye.
Ward 4.
Aye.
Mayor, aye. It's unanimous. Item 16, consider approval of resolution 2024-19R, approving selection of Anchor QEA as consulting engineers for the design and implementation phase of Texas General Land Office, Texas Coastal Management Program Grant Cycle 30, and declaring an effective date. Ms. Henry?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This resolution is being brought to you to award to an engineering agreement to Anchor QEA. This is for a mid-mod, which is mitigation, forgot what the mod, moderate, there you go, for the GLO, the Coastal Management Program, Cycle 30. Interestingly enough, on July 2nd, we received a notification from the GLO that their award of this grant that we've already applied for, they're putting off until after Hurricane Harvey. So we don't know if we won the award yet or not, but we're going through the process as previously scheduled to award to an engineer and a grant administrator. And at this point, we received 6 engineering firms, and we're suggesting Anchor QEA.
Okay. Questions?
I make a motion to approve agenda item number 16.
I'll second.
I have motion and second. Further questions? Call for a vote. Ward 1.
Aye.
Ward 2.
Aye.
Ward 3.
Abstain.
We have abstention in Ward 4. It's
Aye.
unanimous with 1 abstention. Item number 17, consider approval of resolution 2024-2OR or 20R, out of 20R, approving the selection of Langford Community Management as grant administration of the Texas General Land Office, Texas Coastal Management Program, Grant Cycle 30, declaring an effective date. Ms. Henry.
Again, Mayor and Council, this is the same grant cycle as previously mentioned through the GLO, and we received 3 responses for our RFPs, and the staff's point system, Langford would be the high point system on this, and therefore staff recommends awarding to Langford.
All right.
How many, we worked with Langford previously on some other grants?
Yes, they're actually our ARPA grant administrator, and I think there's one other grant we're working on with Langford.
I move to approve item 17 as presented.
Have a motion, have a second? I have a second. Further question? Call for vote, Ward 1?
Aye.
Ward 2?
Aye.
Ward 3?
Aye.
Ward 4?
Aye.
Mayor, aye, it's unanimous. Item number 18, consider approval of emergency purchase for electrical control panel and 2 submersible pumps for Gagon Lift Station. Mr. Donahoe.
Yes, Mayor and Council, this is merely housekeeping. We talked about this last time. There was a typo on the cover sheet. The Gagon Lift Station was impacted by Tropical Storm Alberto, and it fried the control panel into submersible pumps. So these, the replacement is already being built by Mercer Controls in Edna, Texas, for a cost of $74,170, and we have ordered replacement pumps from Xylem Watering Solutions for a total of $66,072.20 for a grand total of $140,242.20. And this will get us back operating normally at the Gagon Lift Station. Currently, we're limping along with 1 pump and a portable pump when needed.
Is any of this reimbursable from?
We have an insurance claim. We have filed an insurance claim on this damage, so we have not heard back from our insurance provider, but we have filed a claim, and hopefully this will be reimbursed.
Mike, could you let us know what you hear from the insurance company, please?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Please do.
Move to approve item 18.
It's okay. I was just gonna say, this is a good example of why we need to ensure our utilities are in a better state, because just for this example here with the storm. But I did like the other price tag better.
Okay, I have a
Had a big
motion.
number missing.
Yeah.
Move to approve item 18 as presented.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further question? We'll call for vote. Ward 1?
Aye.
Ward 2?
Aye.
Ward 3?
Aye.
4?
Aye.
Mayor, aye, it's unanimous. City manager update, you got anything you hadn't already talked about?
It's all budget all the time, that's it, and we don't need executive session.
Oh, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a
Oh,
motion.
wait, I'm sorry, Ward.
Calm down.
Yeah, I was gonna say, reports from council.
Everybody.
I'll just be really quick for Brad's sake. We did hold a TERS public presentation this week. A good audience did come, and it was really beneficial. There was actually a lot of involvement, a lot of questions, a lot of kind of open discussion occurred as well. So I was very pleased, and I do appreciate the consultant coming down and doing that for us. I think it's extremely important to give the public the opportunity to participate in those discussions openly. It's probably all for me.
Nothing from Ward 2 tonight. We're doing good.
All right.
Nothing?
Up to you.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that's.
Yeah, I'm sorry, nothing from me, Mayor.
I've got one thing. I'm supposed to be in Austin Friday to address some congressional people regarding TWIA. And kind of look forward to that. If you got any stories you want to tell before I go up there, I'll be glad to write them down. But we're talking about their proposed insurance rate increases, among other things. And so I will be up there doing that. Other than that, I don't have anything. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
You did it. We're adjourned.
Took me like a year.
9:13.